and welcome to day 26 of May, Myself and I. Today's words are Jekyll and Hyde. The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was one of my favourite classics when I was at school. Great Gatsby was my all-time favourite, then Tender is the Night, then Jekyll and Hyde. I've made various different videos about regenerations. I think I made a video called 5 Alive, and it was about how I feel like I've gone through, at the time, I had gone through 5 different phases of where my style had shifted or my way of thinking had shifted, and I'd sort of grown up, I guess. I'd just progressed through different parts of my life, and with those chapters came different personality traits or different clothing, different hair. And I also made a video called Never Talked About This Before, in which I briefly touched on something big that happened in my life that I felt like kind of drove a wedge between 2 halves of my life, the before and the after, and how I could always see a really clear difference when I looked at pictures of me before it happened, and how like innocent and fresh-faced and untouched I looked by this negative thing that happened in my life. And then when I saw pictures of myself after, I was like, oh wow, you can really see the difference in my face and my eyes and how tired I look. And it's probably something only I will notice, just because I know me and I know myself and I know how I was feeling at both times. And I think I'm just fascinated by people anyway. I'm fascinated by how people's minds work. I'm fascinated by just how different people can be. The thing that springs to mind is like Trump supporters, not to get political. I'm just completely fascinated by how 2 people can be given exactly the same facts and exactly the same scenario and exactly the same situation and come to 2 completely different conclusions. It blows my mind. I'm so interested by it all. And like I said a couple videos ago, I really feel like I'm at a point now where I'm really settled in who I am and how I feel and how I think, and I don't really want to stray too much from where I am now, because I'm so content and so happy. But it's inevitable. At some point something's going to change. Something hugely negative might happen to me, which changes me again. Something massively positive might happen to me, which changes me in a completely different way that I'm totally not expecting. That's just life. And then there's also this divide between not just me, but anyone who has sort of like a public profile. There's this divide between who we are to people who don't know us versus who we are in private to the people, to like our inner circle, to the people who know us really well, like our family and friends. And there are some people where that divide is really minimal. They're pretty much the same across the board. There are people who are drastically different, who are like really energetic, really out there, really bubbly, really crazy and wild to the public, and when they're at home they're very like subdued and very chilled. And I feel like I'm somewhere in the middle, and I feel like I am getting the balance back. I'm finding the balance now. When I started, I feel like there was no difference between who I was behind the camera and who I was in front of the camera, which caused a lot of problems for me, because I was oversharing, I was letting people in way too much, and then when something did go wrong, and that incident that I've talked about, everyone knew about it. It was public, it was horrible, it was awful. Everyone thought of me as their like big sister or their best friend. People would start to just ask me questions about it at stage door, which I just wasn't able to handle, and so I'd end up just crying at people at stage door and just breaking down, and it was hard. It was really, really hard. And that's when I learned the lesson that I needed to pull my boundaries back in a bit. And then I feel like I went way too much the other way. I wanted to keep everything a secret, and I didn't want to tell anyone anything, and I got scared, basically. I got really scared, and then I started just to retreat and get cagey. Now I feel like I'm starting to find that balance again, and a lot of it is just to do with communication. A lot of it is to do with just talking about how I feel and what I'm willing to share, just hoping that people understand, and for the most part they do, and it's cool. And also, I have to come to terms with the fact that it's okay that there's a divide between who I am publicly and who I am privately. I don't think there'll ever be a massive drastic jump with me, because it's not like I have like a big public persona, but it's more in terms of what I'm sharing. And it's okay that there are things that I keep for myself, and it's okay that there are things that are mine alone. And I need to understand that I'm not being dishonest, I'm just being human and not wanting to bear all the time. And I think this is all just part of the social media generation, because me and Oliver were talking about it the other day, like, there are no guidelines. We are the social media generation who have to figure out what these rules and boundaries are, because there was no generation before us. Like my parents, they didn't have this level of communication and interaction with strangers, with people all around the world that we've never met before, and this level of criticism and scrutiny. It's above and beyond what the world has ever had to deal with before. So it's not like I can go to my mum and say, hey, this has happened, what do I do? And my mum will be like, oh yeah, this happened to me when I was 26. Here's all of the advice that I can share with you. Like, my mum didn't grow up with the internet. She didn't deal with any of this. So there's no one to turn to. There's no one to say, this is what you should be doing, because no one really knows. It's kind of a big shrug. We are the generation, or the generations, that are having to figure it all out, and that's hard. So we all kind of need to have a little bit of tolerance and understanding that people are going to screw up, and we're all kind of learning via trial and error, which is scary. It's got to be done, because then at some point our sons and daughters, or granddaughters and grandsons, are going to come to us and be like, I've got this problem, what do I do? And we're going to go, ah yes, I know exactly what to do, because that happened to me when I was your age. And we'll be able to give them a plethora of advice that they're very grateful for, that we never got. Sometimes I wish I'd continued with education far enough so that I got to a point where I could take psychology classes, because I'm just so fascinated by humans and brains. I will see you tomorrow.